People often think that a woman who thinks deeply is naturally prone to sadness, that her intelligence itself is a heavy, dark condition. But this thinking completely misses a deeply nuanced reality. Your mind is not a sickness. Deep intelligence does not automatically create anxiety or depression. The real struggle starts when your intelligence becomes a trap. It happens when your mind becomes the only place pressure, fear, and unspoken responsibility can go. The problem is not that you think too deeply. The problem is that your mind tries too hard to keep you safe and prepared, and in that desperate attempt, it sometimes turns your beautiful depth into an exhausting, endless loop. Psychology draws a really important distinction here. There is a huge difference between thoughtful reflection and what researchers call repetitive rumination. Reflection is actually a helpful tool for finding clarity. It asks a simple question. It asks, what can I understand from this experience, and what should I do next? Reflection moves you forward. It leads to a resolution or a sense of acceptance. Rumination is fundamentally different. It is a passive, stuck cycle. Repetitive rumination asks the exact same painful questions over and over again, and it never moves toward any real action. For a deeply reflective woman, this line can easily get blurry. You are highly capable of profound analysis. Because of this, you might confuse this mental repetition with processing your emotions. You might truly believe that if you just replay a difficult conversation one more time, you will figure it out. You think you will finally unearth a magical insight that will set you free. But this looping thought process does not give you clarity. It only gives you deep fatigue. Rumination actually keeps negative emotions artificially alive in your nervous system. It repeatedly brings old fears and painful memories right back to the surface. It reopens an emotional wound, all while convincing you that you are merely trying to understand it. Instead of figuring out what can actually be changed right now, your attention gets stuck. It stays anchored to why an awful event happened in the first place. You obsess over what it supposedly reveals about your character. You are not always searching for a brand new answer. Sometimes your mind is simply searching for a version of the past that no longer hurts. And in that endless, exhausting search, you might gain 100 different interpretations of a memory, but you gain absolutely no greater peace. This exhaustion is made worse by the sheer volume of invisible work you do every day. You are not overthinking for no reason at all. You have quietly and steadily become the planning department for your entire life. You are the risk manager. You are the emotional memory system for everyone around you. Researchers look at this and call it gendered mental labor. This is the unseen work of anticipating needs and remembering tiny details. It means monitoring unfinished tasks, researching options, and coordinating complex schedules. Women frequently take on a much larger share of this background work. Do you know what the hardest part is? It's that this work doesn't stop when you sit down on the couch to rest. Your working memory is inherently limited. So continually tracking all these unfinished responsibilities creates a heavy, chronic cognitive load. Your mind remains completely occupied by invisible spreadsheets. You're constantly tracking who needs what. You're figuring out what might go wrong tomorrow. You're trying to prevent disasters before they happen. People look at you and they just see seamless, easy competence. They don't see the massive cognitive cost of maintaining that competence. They do not realize that the person who anticipates every single problem rarely feels allowed to just switch off. When you act as the unofficial memory system for your family, your workplace, or your friend group, true calmness is hard to find. It feels less like a simple choice and more like a total impossibility. And your responsibility does not magically end when a physical task ends. It lingers in your body as a quiet hum of hypervigilance. Because you are so incredibly attuned to the needs of others, there is another profound risk. You risk completely disappearing from your own relationships. This is the hidden psychological cost of a dynamic called self-silencing. Self-silencing is a pattern where you suppress your own thoughts and emotions to keep the peace. You hide your needs, your anger, or your disagreements just to preserve a connection with someone else. You might understand everyone else's perspective in the room so completely that you simply stop defending your own. Empathy is a beautiful trait, but when it is stripped of firm, healthy boundaries, it can slowly and quietly morph into self-erasure. You might find yourself running complex internal algorithms before you even open your mouth to speak. You predict exactly how other people will react. You carefully assess their emotional fragility. You constantly decide whether you are actually allowed to express your reality. This silence might look like emotional maturity, but it hides a very deep sense of fear or powerlessness. Constantly editing your own words creates a widening chasm. It builds a wall between your perfectly managed public persona and your messy private truth. The real tragedy of self-silencing is not just the unexpressed anger you carry around. It is that by chronically hiding your needs, you gradually lose clarity about what you actually want. You can deeply understand everyone in the room and still completely disappear from your own life. This complicated dynamic bleeds heavily into your professional life and personal achievements too. For many deeply thoughtful women, excellence doesn't produce a lasting feeling of joy. High standards are not inherently a bad thing, but they become deeply destructive when they curdle into perfectionistic self-criticism. There is a critical difference here. It is the difference between wanting to do something well and believing that any mistake proves you are fundamentally broken. You are not exhausted just because you care about quality. You are exhausted because every flaw becomes a sweeping, terrible verdict on your core worth. You might complete a massive, difficult project perfectly. You might receive glowing, universal praise from everyone involved. And yet, you will still lie awake at 3 a.m. You will focus on the minor details you missed. You experience everyday uncertainty as personal failures, rather than a normal part of being human. And even when the objective, undeniable evidence of your success is right in front of you, it can be agonizingly difficult to accept. This is the distinct cruelty of imposter feelings. You might attribute all your hard-earned achievements to pure luck. You might say it was just good timing, or the help of others, or simply a level of sheer effort that you can never sustain. Your own intelligence actually works against you in this specific area. A brilliant mind is exceptionally good at generating highly logical explanations. Your brain will build a very convincing case for why your success does not truly count. The inner fraud alarm simply never switches off. Compliments do not actually reassure you. They only create more anxiety because they raise the expectations. Now you feel absolutely terrified that you have to meet this new, impossible standard. You prepare excessively for everything. You overwork not out of passion, but out of fear. You hold on to a desperate belief that your competence must be constantly proven over and over again to avoid eventually being exposed. In high-stakes environments, this internal pressure is often magnified by something else. It is magnified by the invisible weight of stereotype threat. Stereotype threat happens when you worry that your performance might confirm a negative assumption about your group. You may be solving a complex problem at work while simultaneously monitoring how you are being judged. You might wonder if a mistake will be treated as just a normal human error, or you might worry it will be used as proof that women in general cannot handle the job. This means you are never just doing the work. You are also carrying the heavy pressure of what your performance is supposed to prove to the entire world. This dual processing consumes precious mental bandwidth. A large portion of your cognitive resources is instantly diverted toward managing the social meaning of your presence. That leaves far less mental capacity for the actual task in front of you. The wildest part is that you do not even have to consciously believe the negative stereotype yourself. The mere awareness of it floating in the air can become deeply distracting and emotionally draining. It is an extra layer of self-monitoring that makes difficult tasks feel profoundly heavier. High cognitive ability, deep reflection, and profound empathy are remarkable, beautiful traits. In large studies, high cognitive ability is often linked to resilience and strength. The psychological pain you experience is not caused by your depth. It is caused by how your depth interacts with the world. It is caused by stress, isolation, and impossible expectations. It is driven by unequal emotional labor and the adaptive coping mechanisms you develop just to survive. You learn to cope in a world that consistently asks entirely too much of you. Because when you are labeled the smart or empathetic one your entire life, it changes things. It creates an unbearable silent pressure to always understand everyone else. You feel pressure to always perform perfectly and to remain completely emotionally controlled. People assume that because you can handle it, you should handle it. And because you possess a mind highly capable of explaining everyone else's bad behavior, you turn that analytical power against yourself. You relentlessly prosecute your own shortcomings. But the solution is not intellectual numbness. You do not need to become less intelligent or less caring to find peace. The goal is learning to recognize when your thought process is producing real understanding and when merely reproducing your distress. It is about recognizing the vital difference between the mental labor that serves you and the mental loops that only trap you. It is about honoring your own internal boundaries just as fiercely as you protect the feelings of the people around you. You have spent so much of your precious life striving to see everything clearly. You have tried to anticipate every single disaster. You have carried the invisible weight of the world so others don't have to. But your mind is allowed to rest, and you deserve to rest.